Ladies and gentlemen, do you remember where you were when you crossed 1200 chess elo? No? Are you still rated half of that? Do you remember where you were when you got your first brilliant move on chess.com? You also don't remember that one? Well, in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you a fascinating game played by a GothamChess subscriber at that elo, and the motto of the game is never resign. Oh, and before we jump into the game, I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's video, Opera. My friends, say hello to Opera One. Opera One is the latest version of the Opera browser with a completely redesigned look and new functionality. It has tons of features and a modular design, so your browsing experience is completely personalized. I mean, just look at this beauty. Opera One has been re-engineered with a new tech stack that makes sure that animations run smoothly, and the UI has been reimagined in a way that makes life very convenient for you. You could say Opera One is preparing for the future. First, you have dynamically adjusting elements in the sidebar. Second, as extensions become more and more prevalent with generative AI features, Opera One groups them all together in a collapsible module in the address bar. And third, did somebody say AI? Yes, obviously that was me. I just said AI. Well, Opera One has one called Aria. Aria can be used to explain or summarize something that you read. It can be used to write you a haiku. It can also be used to generate some creative ideas. Aria can't play chess yet, but if it can, I will embarrass it in a YouTube video. And as a bonus, Opera One also has a feature called Tab Islands. Tab Islands lets you easily organize tabs, collapse, or expand them based on a certain group, just so you can focus on one thing at a time, so you can work, shop, or research without it all blending into chaos. To get started with Opera today, click the link in the description below and give the Opera One browser a try for free. Let's get back to the video. Our two main characters are both Americans. They are both granted Grandmaster titles, and we will be following the action between Pepsi Boy and Trey. Yes, those are their legal names on their passports. Pepsi Boy, one word. For legal reasons, this video is not sponsored by Pepsi. You can drink Pepsi, Coca-Cola, any other smaller brands, or you don't have to drink soda at all. Pepsi Boy and Trey begin this game like any 1200 ELO players in the world. And that is a double London. as if one London was not good enough, they both play a London, okay? Completely fine. Obviously nothing wrong with this. Experienced London players know that the best way to challenge a person that also plays the London is to turn the game back into a Queen's Gambit with the move c4. And then knight c3, and oftentimes you can get a queen here, put pressure on this pawn, which no longer has good defense, or you could just play it like a normal London, bishop to d3, also completely fine. Black now probably should not take, probably you should keep the tension, you should slide back, but black takes on d3, because that's life. And now either taking with the pawn or the queen is good. The pawn is good because it completely controls these squares, and also the queen can go out this way, and white can use the open c-file in the future, but taking with the queen is good because you don't double your pawns and because the queen can go this way and the queen can attack, so everything is fine. So far, I don't hate what anybody's done. Black plays pawn to e6. One thing that black did do is put the knight in front of the c-pawn, which you should not do that, unless you really know what you're doing. For example, if you're playing a kind of like a knight c3, bishop f4 London, where you're trying to play a knight to b5, maybe, but I don't really think that that's what black is doing. But again, everybody's developing, life is good, and now bishop d6, and now Pepsi Boy does something really smart. Doesn't take. See, a lot of like 900s would go, oh, well, they took my bishop, so, you know, I'm going to take their bishop, because for some reason we like to copy people in chess. But you don't have to do that. In the London, if you control the two central squares, then you're going to win the game. For example, you know, if you can put a knight on e5 successfully and launch some sort of attack at the opponent while they can't put the knight on your center, you're going to be very happy. This is also a very smart move. Fighting still for the control, and taking would not be that great because it would open up white's rook. So one way for black to get into a lot of trouble very fast is opening up white's attacking possibilities on the h-file. Because now white is just one moment away for example, g4, try to go g5. If the knight comes here, you have knight bd2. Like, black could get a completely losing position very, very fast. But I have to give credit where it's due because black doesn't do that. So black takes, helping out white, and now black plays the move queen to e7. And queen to e7 has two different ideas. And listen, this is why I like covering 1200 games, because while we are going to laugh at the like plethora of really idiotic things that are about to happen, because that's what, you know, this How to Lose at Chess playlist that I have on YouTube is all about, It's what it's all about, rather. You're still going to learn a lot. Because 1200s are actually much better than a lot of you watching this video right now. I think the average elo of a Gotham Chess viewer, not as an insult, just purely from the standpoint of chess enthusiasm, is like 700-800. So you should not feel embarrassed if you're 500 or 400 or, you know, not yet 1200. I mean, think of it like this. I'm nearly 28 and I have played chess for 23 years and I am still not a grandmaster and I'm almost bald. So, you know. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know what that had to do with anything. I kind of just turned that into a therapy session. My point is you should not be embarrassed if your elo is triple digits. So queen to e7 is trying to prepare long castling because black, actually very smart, doesn't want to get in trouble over here. And that's exactly what black does. Black plays long castles. Now, what white should do here is, okay, they committed the king, right? That's what they did. So I'm going to attack. And black might strike the center, but now you have a check. Now you're going to win this pawn. And if black waits with something like king b8, b5. Knight comes here, knight b3. All of a sudden, you know, now the rook is pointing at the king over here as well. I mean, it's not getting any better. So white does try to attack, but in a kind of a bad way. White plays c4. And it gets really bad because c4 opens up the c file. But it probably would have been better for white to attack with the queen. Because white goes here to try to play rook c1, I guess. But things spin out of control very quickly. In this position, black plays knight d7, which is a crazy move. Like, the fact that this 1200 even knows pieces are allowed to go backwards in a game is impressive. Because I thought you had to get to like 1500 to unlock that skill. You know, like in the video games. Like, I thought chess.com wouldn't even let you move pieces backwards until you got to a certain level. Now, Pepsi Boy plays rook c1, which was the entire idea, which is why Pepsi Boy played c4. I don't like it because it weakens the b4 square a lot. And that's going to become relevant in a moment because after rook c1, Trey plays e5. And now we have a very instructive moment. e5. So white can take that three different ways, right? And white can also not take it. White can push, and white can also do something completely different. But the thing is, if white plays a3, white's just going to lose a piece. So you have to think about what is black's threat here, okay? However, if you take, you got to realize that you're going to get hit with two attacks right away. And if you move, the knight's coming in. So you got to give a check. You have to seize back the tempo of the game. Does that make sense? You have to play the most forcing move on the board to make your opponent react to you. Because if you don't, they're going to just completely take over the game. So if the king was on b8 in that position, like if the king is on b8 in this position, white is completely lost. But because white has this check, white is doing well. So e5 is played. d5 would be another interesting move. And then after this fork, you would need to save your queen. If they take your knight, you take their knight. If they go here, you're taking with check, so you're winning. Very complex position. Unfortunately, white, like, you should be taking with what's worth the least, just in case. White doesn't do that. So white takes with what's worth the most in that instance, because white had no other way to take. So white takes with the knight, and now is just lost. So white is lost because white cannot take because of this. Had black taken like this, white would have been fine because white would have still had this check. But unfortunately, now after take, that's it. You are just losing. You're losing because you can give this check, but I'm going to block with the knight, and that's it. And you can threaten mate, but I'm not going to get mated because I'm going to play c6 or knight f6 or whatever. So very tragic, okay? And the way you avoid that is you gotta think, I gotta take with the minimum value, or I gotta anticipate the danger in a sophisticated way, like maybe queen e4 would have been better here to pin or something like that. But that doesn't happen, and that's life. And now queen e4, and white is lost. White is completely lost. White is down a knight, and black plays queen to b4 check, which is the entire reason I did not like the move c4. I would have liked if white had a pawn on a3 to prevent any of that from happening. Anytime you push a pawn, you need to think, what have I weakened? And you need to make a decision like that. Okay? So this is the position. Queen b4, king e2. Now queen takes b2. White is down 3 points of material, does not have the right to castle anymore, and it's only going to get worse. Rook to c2 apparently makes the advantage even more in black's favor. The queen comes back to b5 check. Great move. King to e1. And now what I would do here with black is I would just continue obliterating the position. If the king tries to defend this pawn, it only gets worse because you have a discovered attack and then you win the queen and also queen b1 check. And you win probably even more than the queen. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if mate is coming. So queen b5, the king would need to go somewhere else. Like, let's say d1. And now you can bring in the other rook and get in here with the knight, play queen b1, whatever. It's all completely winning. So, that doesn't happen, though. And here's something really weird happens. So, in this position, rather than saving the knight, black plays f6, which doesn't save the knight at all, but it actually does in a brilliant way. Why am I speaking in riddles? The knight cannot be taken because it is tactically defended. Why am I continuing to speak in riddles? Because I'm annoying. If you take the knight, I just said, every time a pawn moves, and frankly, anytime any piece moves in chess, you need to think about what pieces now see what. In this position, the pawn took the knight. Now, the rook sees the entire d-file. That was not the case a move ago. So after pawn takes knight, all of a sudden, queen b1. And the king cannot sidestep anywhere except e2, and now you're going to lose the rook. That's brutal. Okay? So now, you know, a moment ago, this wouldn't have been the case, but it is now. King to e1. And could the queen have gone here and tried to win like this? Yes, but then maybe there would have been a checkmate possibility, but obviously you would have defended. White would have tried to pillage over here. Yes. Absolutely. But you've got to be very careful, okay? So in reality, this is like a weird genius idea where the knight is tactically defended because the d-file is going to open up. And so at the end of this sequence, there's going to be a mate threat. So that did not exist a moment ago, so white is just totally, like, hopelessly lost because of that. White doesn't get any counterplay at all. And by the way, that happened. d5. Queen b1 check. And in this position... What? Wait. Black played f6. Tactically defending the... But black spent 1 second on that move? What? You got 4 minutes and 20 seconds to do that, and you go here. And I got news for you. White doesn't even have to repeat. Like, white could have played queen c4 and just gotten to a rook endgame. But instead of that, white's king now makes an escape. It just escapes out. Oh my god, what is happening? Now, it gets even worse for black. In this position, black, of course, should be taking the pawn and recreating an attack on the king. Instead of that, black plays f5. Oh my goodness. But I got news for you, my friends. f5 is once again, f5 is not a mouse slip. f5 is a brilliant move in disguise. You know why? Because the idea is to play check, attacking the king, but rook f8. Black missed that it was check. You understand? Black's idea was the queen is going to take, and then I'm going to pin to the king. Black forgot that when queen takes pawn, it's check, which is tough. That's tough. And by the way, mini lesson, I just told you, every time a piece moves, the board changes. So if in this position, white played pawn to e6, attacking the rook, The queens now see each other. A door opened. That's the way the chessboard works. So be very careful. Okay? King to b8 is played. And now all white has to do is just bring the queen back. If black gives a check, believe it or not, you run the king to g4, you run the king over here, and the king is safe behind the wall of pawns, behind the wall of pieces, and the attack will rage on the b and c files, and white will probably be successful. So, queen takes f5, black has thrown it all away, and white gets tunnel vision. Absolutely brutal. That's how it goes. And the way you avoid mistakes like this is before you make a move, you ask yourself, does my opponent have a way of creating a threat against me? Does my opponent have a way of creating a threat against me? Before you play a move in chess, you must ask yourself, can they check my king? Can they attack my queen? Can they capture anything? There's only one check in this position, and it's not particularly good. But they do have a way to attack your queen and your king. You're getting skewered, and not the tasty kind. Rook f8 is lights out, and you lose the queen. Now, a lot of people would resign here. Don't. Play on. There is an M in the evaluation. All black has to do is corral the king. Queen to d7 check. Force the king over here. Get closer with the queen, something like queen f5. White might take on c7. Then you play g6, threatening a mate. Like, the king is going to run out of oxygen at some point, and if not, you're just going to win all the pawns. You're going to take all the pawns and just don't get back rank mated. Always play pawn to a6. Make sure your king has breathing room. Black plays h5 check. Queen d7. The king does run to safety, but black is completely winning and does a great job. An excellent job protecting their king, using the h-pawn as a battering ram. And look at this move, g5, pawn haymaker, pulling apart the white pawns. White doing a nice job too, though, keeping the cluster together, because if white plays this, the split pawns are going to be fatal. Queen f5 check, picking up this and this, and the game is going to be over very quickly. So pawn to g3. Now black does another nice job. You gotta simplify. With only one rook on the board, the rook is not going to stand up to the queen. And now the way black wins this is gets in, beats up the king, eats the pawns, wins the game. And then at some point wins the rook. For example, queen d1 check, by a miracle, does not win the rook. Pawn to g4, king f2. Can the queen sneak into f3? Absolutely. Are you completely winning after queen f3? Absolutely. You're going to win everything. Check. You try to get this one too. You push your g-pawn. Like, you're just going to win this game. So, black plays queen d5, pawn to g4, and queen f3, and does exactly everything that I said. And now black is easily winning, because all black has to do is move the queen and push the pawn and make sure this pawn doesn't queen. Check, and there we go. Easy peasy. 2 squares away from queening. King e6. Uh-oh. I think we know where this is headed. The king is going to maybe mate over here. King's going to... Oh, no. Black was not going to end up in a Gotham video that easily. Of course, black was winning with g2 as well. There was no way to get mated. The rook is not a kangaroo, so it can't jump over anything. Rook d7 check. The king runs out. That's it. The king is safe. Yeah, there's nothing. Now, for some reason, white continues to move the king. Pawn to g2 and rook g7, but this is over because you could play queen f1, queen d1 check enables the promotion. Oh my god, he found it. Oh, brutal, it's over. Yeah, the pawns are just way too far. And in this position, I mean, you can bring the king back, you can take. Okay, queen b1 is not the best move. I don't know why we wouldn't just take this pawn, but all right. But now the pawn's getting a little close, but obviously just bring the king back, bring the queen back. Very easy. All right, do not give unnecessary checks, because when you give unnecessary checks, you force the king closer to help the pawn promote. Okay, free pawn, by the way. All right, I don't know what that does, and you allowed white to get 2 very closely connected pawns. It's time to bring the king. Enough. All right, very good. Now give a check and bring the king, and you should be fine. But you got to be very careful how you bring the king, because here's a nice way you can lose, and white would promote to a knight here, by the way. So king to f7, and black plays a5. Black just decides, I'm going to queen. White is now also a square away from queening. Very, very dangerous. If you play a4, I'm going to make a knight. Again, I'm making a knight. And then after take, take, I go here. Push, push, I queen with check. So e7, black correctly gives a check. King slides forward. You got a pin, but are we going to make a draw? No, white has now 2 pawns on the 7th rank, but you can't queen. You can't queen. You pinned yourself. So black plays a4. Yeah, black's just winning. King e8. Queen g6. Nice. Pinning from the other side. Now, how do you actually win this game? Probably have to give a check. And then in this position, you have to pin here. Why? Because if king f8, this is mate. So you get the opponent to this position where king f8 is possible and queen h8 is threatened. Because with the queen here, you can't go there. But that doesn't happen. Check. King g8. And we're shuffling, but is it a draw? Oh my goodness. Black is probably panicking a little bit and then decides, you know what? Oh my god, black lost the game. Oh, because now the pawn can queen, the pawn. Oh! But it's still equal, because now either of the pawns can queen. Check again, king f8, and now black just decides I'm going to make a run for it. Pawn to e8, what is going on? Well, if we do the math, probably in the endgame, black is still going to win, because black has more pawns. So that's exactly what black goes for here. Black goes for the winning queen and pawn endgame. If you trade the queens, black has 3 pawns, white has 2. So black is going to allow a queen, make a queen, and run over here and try to win the game. That's exactly what black does. And so in this position, black plays queen to b4 check. Queen e7, take, take, pushes, 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 and gets checkmated in 1 move.